I'll give a little alpha leak for your viewers. We have an NFT collection coming that is going to be airdropped.
All right, I'm here with JP from Arcade2Earn. He and his team are doing some great things in the GameFi space, and I'm excited to learn all about it. We'll hear about the current state of the GameFi, and then we'll get into Arcade and what they're trying to accomplish, and then finish off with learning about what mission pools are and how they tie into the Illuvium space. So JP, great to have you here, and give yourself a little introduction.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Big fan of your channel and the content that you make. I think you do really great work, and excited to be here and kind of share more about what we're building. So a little background on myself. So I've been a trader and an investor pretty much my entire adult life. I was initially in biotech and tech stocks, over a decade ago. And since then, I've been very passionate about the trading and investing space. And when crypto came around in 2015, 2016, I started to kind of creep my toes in a little bit. 2017, I totally took a dive into the deep end, and I was just, super passionate about crypto, learning as much and investing as much as I can in the space. So now, time flies. That was, about 5 years ago. And since then, I've been pretty much full-time crypto. I've had some business stuff off and on that I've done on the side. I've always been very entrepreneurial, and, I've ran some companies in the past. So, when the whole GameFi and NFT started around in the, I guess just, really just the last couple of years, my friends and I that are very close and just keeping in touch, for the we have like a group chat, right, where we all learn and talk crypto together. And my who's now my chief investment officer at Arcade, one of my good friends, Kazi, was talking to us, and he was like, wow, like I think NFTs and gaming is going to be like a super big thing. And this was like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Like this was before any of this happened. And so I'm fortunate that he really turned me on to it early on. And when we started to recognize that NFTs, the potential that they had, we started to look at gaming and GameFi. I'm a big gamer. I always have been my whole life. And so, we really just started to look at how we could, build in that space, and super happy to be here now. I have a great team behind me, really smart people. But yeah, no, I mean, I've always been, very business minded and just a trader at heart. And I'm happy to be full-time in crypto now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I think it started all with Axie a few years back, but then when the bull market really started to take off, we saw GameFi really explode with Axie and then some other games. And I know myself, I got caught up in it. I made some good money for some time, and then things came crashing down.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the current state of GameFi and where it's headed?
Yeah. So, I think that these games like Axie were a really good stepping stone, right? It served as a proof of concept that there is demand for this, right? And that it can have really meaningful economic impact across the world, right? It's really breaking down economic barriers and regional barriers for people. And I think that's important. But I do think that this early stage of GameFi that we've just kind of started to go through is very extractive. And people are playing just to earn, right? And they're not playing for the fun of it nearly enough. So in terms of the current state of GameFi, I think we're incredibly early. I think that we're like Bitcoin in 2011, 2012 early. Like we're just like over the next 3 to 5 years, if we're talking about a bell curve of adoption, we're like at the very early start of it before the ramp up when all of these AAA games and companies really come into the space and prove the demand. And I'm just really excited that, we're here obviously to talk about Arcade and Illuvium. And I think Illuvium is really leading that wave in terms of AAA quality games. I would argue that they have, not months, but years on really the next really great AAA competitor that's going to build at the scale that they're on. So I'm just super excited for what they're doing. I think what Illuvium is kind of leading the charge in doing is changing the phrase from play to earn to play and earn, right? And that's something that we're really passionate about at Arcade, is that we think play to earn is very, it's very extractive, and play and earn should be really that full circle where there's a stable economy. There's people willing to play the game just because it's a really fun AAA quality game that they enjoy. And they're willing to spend money on it, just like someone spends money on Fortnite or Call of Duty without expectation of return. So I think that's where the industry is headed. But where it is currently, I think we're just really, really early.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I personally think about it, and I think it's just it. The biggest factor is just, is the game going to be fun? Is it a good game? I think tokenomics and everything play a big factor too, but it almost doesn't even matter if the game is bad. And if the game's good, I think anything could work. But I mean, just talking about some of those issues, and then you decided to come up with your project Arcade. What problems are you trying to solve? And do you have any competitors, or is this something that's very unique to what you have?
Yeah. So, really the problem we're trying to solve is that we feel that, at the moment, the barrier to entry for GameFi is pretty high, like in basically three key ways. We have a high cost to entry for like premium NFTs, right? Like even on the low end, I mean, the having to spend thousands of dollars for an NFT to get you into a game is a high barrier to entry for most of the world. Number two is, a lot of time that's required to keep up with the game, right? I mean, think about how much time you spend studying Illuvium to create the content. Like, it can be a full-time job just for one game, and then try to multiply that by 5 AAA quality games, and it's like your head is going to spin trying to keep up with everything. And then the third being, just the barrier of interest, right? Like, there's a lot of people that want exposure to emerging industries, and like they recognize that GameFi is the next big thing. It's like being early for the internet, the .com boom, right? It's like being early for tech in the late 1900s. So, being this early for GameFi, some people want exposure to it, but they're like, I run a company, or I'm a, a full-time parent. I don't have time to game, right? Like, I just don't have the time to keep up with it, and or the interest to keep up with it, right? If they're just not a gamer. So we're trying to address those main three things and help the average person get exposure to GameFi in a more simplified way. And so Arcade is solving that problem by, we're lowering the barrier to entry by our concept of mission pools that we can get in more depth about later. But these mission pools essentially give our Arcade token holders the ability to get exposure in an optimal way to real gaming, real activities in GameFi, not like passive involvement with a token or sitting on an NFT for price appreciation. The actual, stake in the activities of gamers in a seamless way. So that's kind of the solution that we provide. We're kind of like an infrastructure play for the GameFi space as a whole, because we benefit all of the major players. We benefit game developers. We benefit game guilds. We benefit the player, or your average streamer, or just someone that's looking for yield, in a DeFi sense. We really benefit all of those different actors. In terms of competitors, we're the first mover here. Like, we definitely have a head start on this concept of, fractionalizing the return of, GameFi NFTs. With that said, I don't think competitors are necessarily a bad thing. I think that we will have competitors. I think that, game guilds could take our model and remake it themselves if they wanted to. So, I think we will have competitors, but I think that what we're building is this hub and foundational layer, to the point where, one of our goals is to make our platform so beneficial to a game guild that they're really de-incentivized from making it themselves, because they can just work with us and get all of the same benefits without really giving up that much, without the headache of running the platform. We're trying to kind of build this infrastructure layer that people want to build on top of, not compete with.
All right, yeah, and we'll touch on a couple more of those things a little later. But first, I just want to dive a little deeper into Arcade and the team. Can you just tell us a little bit about the team, how you go about choosing new projects to invest in, and if you have any partners or backers in the space?
Yeah. So, our team we have a very special team. So, our team comes from a background of traditional business and corporate experience and, people that have been in the corporate business world for many, many years, decades even. And so, I think what you see a lot in the crypto space, not really bashing this approach because it does work for some, but what you see in the crypto space often is people that are true crypto degens that really are fresh to business, right? Like they have great ideas, but they don't really know how to execute it properly, or they're not organized enough. They don't have that depth of experience to running a business properly. And so I think that really is where we are set apart because we have people with decades of experience in the roles that they have. We have a business development officer that's been in the industry and relationship management for 20 years. We have a marketing officer that has been in the industry for 10 15 years and ran a crypto hedge fund out of Florida for a while. We have an investment officer, Kazi, that I mentioned earlier, that's been like one of the best traders I've ever met for over a decade. So we really have the best of both worlds, right? Because we are crypto enthusiasts, we are passionate about decentralization. We're also gamers. We have all pretty much played games together over the years, right? So like we've been, in each other's networks for a while. And then we mesh all of that with the traditional experience. And it really creates this all-star team where we've been able to accomplish a lot in a short period of time. I mean, Arcade's only been around for 6 months, right? And in that time, we've formed partnerships with some of the best in the industry. And, we've made a name for ourselves in the industry. So I think that's kind of, a little bit of background on the team, but, in terms of kind of how we pick the projects to invest in, Kazi runs our research department. And so we have several different people that their full-time commitment is, researching games. We get pitched games daily. I mean, we probably look at a dozen games a week of people coming to us saying, hey, we'd like your input on our economic model, or, are you guys interested in investing in us, or do you want to back us for mission pool, or, use us for mission pools? And so we've already established ourselves as this, almost like a advisor to the space where people are coming to us asking for our input. And so I think it's really cool that our research team has built up that reputation, but we have a very thorough process of picking the games that we get involved with, Illuvium being one of them. There is a very, we create entire research reports, taking a look at the economic viability, like the play for fun factor, how large is the community? What kind of backers do they have? How large is their team? What kind of experience do they have? And so we look at all of these things on a very, very particular level and I would say, 1 out of every 10 games we look at really is on the par of quality that we look for collaboration. And then in terms of partners and backers, we're really fortunate and proud to be backed by some of the best in the industry. Our round our seed round, which is closed now, was led by Crypto.com Capital, Solana Ventures, KuCoin Labs, Merit Circle, LD Capital, Parsec. We have really some heavy hitters that are backing our project, and they are, very excited to back our project because they understand and they recognize that what we're building is really impactful to the scalability of GameFi. It's something that we've been told multiple times over. Wow, this is really needed for GameFi to reach scale and for new money to come in, right? Because that barrier is just too high for the industry to grow at the rate that it needs to grow to keep up with all this development.
Awesome. And so I know, since I've been following you, especially on Twitter, I see that you're in spaces all the time. So a lot of these new projects that you're talking to, you're doing it in an open way. So almost anyone can just jump in and listen in on these conversations. So if anyone out there wants to get in on these, then, follow JP on Twitter and then jump into some of the spaces. I
we do that
on 3, 4, 5 times a day. Sometimes I'm there all day.
We do it a little bit differently, right? I mean, you see a lot of companies that are taking these meetings behind closed doors, and we were looking at it as if if we're going to be researching these games all the time, why don't we do that in a public forum so that we can share that research with our community, right? And we can be very open and transparent When you're seeing us review these games, it's oftentimes our first conversation with them, right? Like we're not coming into it already knowing like what questions to ask. We're very straightforward with them. We're genuine in our interest and our questions because it's kind of the first stab that we have at researching the game. So yeah, it's definitely a fun time. That's our Learn to Earn series, what we call it, and we have several of those a week, like you said. So yeah, feel free to stop by the Arcade Discord or the Arcade Twitter anytime and take a look at our schedule.
Yeah, and I can say for myself, I've definitely learned quite a bit from hopping in on those. A lot of concepts that I would have never even thought I'm hearing about. So definitely, give that a look. So you said you have a token coming out soon, and you haven't quite launched the arcade project yet. Can you give us a quick look at like the roadmap for those things and what we can expect going forward?
Yeah, so I want to preface with Arcade's model is not conceptual, right? Like the smart contracts are built. We're through and ongoing audits with Halburn. We have a working product, and the reason we haven't done our TGE yet is because it's kind of a disservice to our early backers and our community to launch in the midst of a bear market where there's a lot of FUD in the air, and people are just scared to get involved with new projects. And ultimately we are community first. We want to make sure that our timing is right for our early supporters to get the most benefit from our execution. And it also helps that we need to kind of time our launch alongside other developments in the GameFi space, right? So some of our projects that we're backing or working with are pushed back a little bit for the same reasons, and it really doesn't do our token holders a lot of good if we launch before mission pools can be executed, right? So like if we launch and there's no game that's live, then it's a little bit tricky, right? So we need to launch alongside some of our partners like Illuvium that are going to make mission pools viable right out of the gate. It's really important to me that people don't launch or don't ape into our public sale and then they're holding this token like, okay, now what do I do with it, right? Like I really dislike when projects do that. So it's important to me that like as soon as public happens, you're able to take that arcade token, go to our platform and interact with the mission pool right away. So in terms of roadmap, we're kind of playing it a little by ear right now. I think that it's definitely going to be as soon as responsibly possible, because we do have the tech stack built out. It's less about we need time to develop. It's more about we need to make sure our timing is right and that our marketing has the runway they need to execute properly. So within the next few months, but I would encourage anyone that wants to stay in touch and like keep a closer eye on it to join our Discord, keep an eye on Twitter. We're very active with our community, and we'll provide updates as soon as we have them.
Awesome. All right, so I want to get more into like the scholarship side of things. I've been a big proponent of scholarships. I think they are good for the space in the right tokenomics and for the right game. And as you can see, I'm wearing a Banana DAO t-shirt here.
Yeah.
And this is a guild that you are already partnered with. You have a great relationship with. But if there are other guilds out there that want to utilize this platform and, get access to the assets that you have, what should they go about doing? What steps should they be taking?
Yeah. So, like we said at the start, the arcade platform is an infrastructure, right? We're not a guild. So we are holders of these NFTs, right? We go and we operate a little bit like a fund in that regard, but we're not a fund, but we operate kind of like one in that way that, we go and we buy large amounts of NFTs that are owned by Arcade and then operated by our guild partners. And these guild partners are called mission pool operators, or MPOs. So as you said, Banana DAO is the first guild partner that we have that is going to be managing or operating the NFTs that Arcade has in our collection. So, we just bought 75, 80 plots of Illuvium land. initially those plots will be managed or operated by Banana DAO, right? For the mission pool operation. And what's really in it for the guild is that they're able to use their expertise and their knowledge to operate NFTs that they don't have to purchase outright, right? So, for a smaller guild, or even a guild like Banana DAO that has some of their own land and some of their own NFTs, they're able to really scale and make use of their community and the scholars they manage by having more plots from Arcade to operate, right? So we help guilds stay scalable and make sure that they're using their scholar base or their players or their pro teams to the fullest extent. And so, over time, we're going to have multiple different guilds, right? We're in talks with, some of our partners, Good Games Guild, Merit Circle. We've had some chats with YGG, Avocado, all of the biggest guilds in the industry, as well as a lot of small ones that are interested in collaborating with us for mission pool operation. Because there's really no loss for them, right? They're able to gain access to NFTs that they don't have to put up the money or assume the downside risk of these NFTs. They don't have to deal with any of that. All they have to do is use their expertise and they create additional revenue for the guild. So we really help guilds stay scalable in that way. But, in terms of how does this, registration process work? We have an application process for mission pool operators. It can be a guild or it can be an individual, even in some cases. Banana DAO is the first and will probably be the only mission pool operator, at least initially, so that we can make sure that we have the process down pat and that we have the relationship, that we cater to that relationship first. But a big part of our scalability plan is to have, a lot of guilds and mission pool operators that are across a wide range of games, all kind of coming into this hub that it's the Arcade platform.
Okay. So if I wanted to be a mission pool operator, could I utilize the scholars I have to help play?
Yeah, absolutely.
In that mission pool?
Yeah, I mean, how you handle your team, like you would kind of be, if you're an individual that has scholars, you're kind of, for the intents and purposes of our organization on the Arcade side, you're kind of like a guild, right? Like you are the focal point, but how you assign out who manages your agreed upon plots, like if you get 10 tier 4 plots from Arcade, you can manage those all yourself, or you can find scholars to do it for you, as long as you're overseeing it and you're making sure that it's quality work, because really it ties back to your expertise, right? So you're kind of on the line as the focal point of, I'm going to ensure that my scholars do this properly because I can tell them how to do it best. And then how that happens is really up to you, and you can decide what cut you want to give them on your side. That's all kind of on the MPO side. That doesn't concern Arcade, as long as the plots are handled to the highest level, right? Because that is where our concern is that we have to work with the best of the best, or Arcade token holders are taking a hit, because the mission pool rewards are going to be less if you mishandle the land, right? So that's kind of where the I guess qualifying process is. But that's kind of, yeah, I mean, you definitely could come in with some scholars and manage land, as long as you are able to prove to the Arcade platform that, like, hey, I've applied, this is why I'm qualified, this is what the resources I have. And then that's just that application process just happens in our Discord. So that's kind of how you ease into that relationship.
Okay. And you touched on like competitive players real quick. I was thinking of this scenario, and tell me if this would work. So in like esports, could a mission pool operator be, say, a pro player in Illuvium who's going to a big tournament, and the coin stakers in that mission pool would get a certain percentage or a cut of the winnings from that tournament?
Yeah, so there's two different ways that kind of relationship would work. For a pro player, if we Arcade are able to give them the use of NFTs that make their job easier, or that they need those NFTs, like we sponsored that professional player by giving them a stacked team of Illuvials to play with, then there's a little bit of give and take there because they give up a little piece of their winnings to the mission pool in exchange for using the NFTs that they need. If that pro player already has everything that they need to go into it themselves and they don't need to borrow anything from Arcade, then what that relationship looks like is we can sponsor it with cash, right? Or like we can put up, they can still play for that mission pool, but where the rewards come from would probably be from the Arcade platform, because the pro player that doesn't need any NFTs from us to do their job, there's nothing in it for them to give up a piece of their rewards, right? Like if they're of their earnings. So in that kind of relationship, we would kind of sponsor that player. Arcade would put up the prize money to disperse back to the token holders. So there's a couple different ways that kind of relationship works, but especially with games where the ability to have really premium NFTs at your disposal to play the tournament, like let's say, you probably know more than I do about how alluvials are going to level up and like their differences and stuff like that. I haven't kept up with that, but let's say that in order to have the best chance in the Leviathan arena, you need to have all max level alluvials. And as pro players, like I don't have the max level alluvials, Arcade could give them those alluvials, which is providing value to them because they have the best team to work with, and then they could split the prize money with the mission pool.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, now that we're on the topic of Illuvium, how else do you see the Arcade project like fitting in with Illuvium for say the average player, and then even a little on the side of land, because you said you've bought quite a bit of plots of land there. So how does all that work for like the average?
Yeah.
Let's just say a guild has scholars, they want to get involved in Illuvium. What does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. I think the most obvious way is with land, because a mission pool could be 30 days or 2 weeks of harvesting land in Illuvium. So we would harvest the fuel, right? The mission pool operator would harvest the fuel. We would sell that fuel into the balancer pool for Ethereum. The Ethereum is then what is paid out, through our process of swapping for Arcade and then paid out to the mission pool. So that's the most obvious way because there's always going to be a balancer pool to sell the fuel into. Other ways that we could kind of get creative with the mission pools is we could have a longer mission pool that's like 30 days of trying to get a blueprint, right? And if the guild is able to find and research a blueprint in that 30-day period, then maybe there's a larger reward because that blueprint's worth something that you can sell, back into the open market, and you can sell that blueprint. Maybe the APY on that mission pool is like 1,000% because you got a rare blueprint, right? So that kind of gamifies it a little bit for the blueprints. As far as like scholars in the main game, there's a few different ways, right? If we have a mission pool that's a week of catching alluvials, then you could have a player that's running. You could have a guild that says, okay, these 3 players are going to each spend an hour a day collecting alluvials, and then at the end of the week we sell those alluvials back into the market or to Arcade. Arcade pays for the alluvials. That is where the cash comes in from those alluvial captures, and then that is redispersed back into the mission pools. So that's kind of the main ways. And then if we were to get a tier 5 land, obviously we could run tournaments and stuff like that, and then do a mission pool for a split of the earnings from the sponsorships and the advertisements for a tournament in that regard. So I think those are the main ways, at least at the moment. I think that once we get our hands on the game, it's going to become clearer the other smaller ways that we can get creative, like maybe a specific skin blueprint that we have, we're making those blueprints and we're selling the blueprints, and those those skins, 30 days of sales, or 30 days of selling that skin is the reward for that mission pool, right? So I think we'll kind of be able to play as figure it out as we go, but at least the initial way that is most obvious is harvesting land and then using that as the income. And we did get about 80 plots of land across all 7 regions and all tiers, so we're pretty set up and ready to go for that.
Okay, so in the scenario of a mission pool for blueprints, I guess you run the risk of just not getting a blueprint in that 30 days. So like what risk would there be for stakers in the mission pool for a scenario like that?
Yeah, so that's kind of another way that our platform is gamified is that, there's no risk of loss of your tokens that you deposit into a mission pool. So like you take your arcade, you deposit it into a mission pool to get your piece of the pie essentially.
Mm,
Um, and then the risk is basically time wasted because like you said, you could go 30 days and if no blueprint is found, then you get back your arcade tokens, but you don't get anything additional. So you wasted
okay.
30 days basically.
So you're just staking these coins essentially, not
Mm-hmm.
not paying the coins.
Exactly. You're not
Yeah.
spending them. The only risk is risk of loss of time because if let's say that there's two identical mission pools. One is 30 days of blueprint harvesting with Merit Circle, and one is
Mm,
30 days of blueprint harvesting with Banana DAO. And everything else is similar, is the exact same. If Merit Circle finds a blueprint, the APY on that mission pool return might be 1,000%. And if BDAO doesn't, then the return might be 0%, right? So that's where the gamification comes in because you really have to be careful what mission pool operators you support. Like you have to do a little, and we'll have all these resources and all of the historical data so that you can, make these educated decisions for yourself. But part of the fun of the platform is like, wow, like I need to research like how often does Merit Circle find blueprints versus BDAO, like so I can make sure I pick the right pool, right? So it's kind of gamified in that regard. But yeah, there's never any risk of losing your arcade. So the worst case scenario is you just don't earn anything additional.
yeah. So this sounds fun for even somebody who doesn't want to play the games. I could see
Mm-hmm.
someone there
It's like a
doing the
grand strategy game.
research. Yeah, yeah. It almost reminds me of the land sale itself. Like
Yeah.
you're not even playing the game. It's just strategy, thinking about everything,
Mhm.
doing your research. But yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I think we're, getting ready to wrap it up here. Is there anything else that you want to, say in here, or, just you can tell everybody where they can find you
Yeah.
and where they can learn more about Arcade?
Yeah. So, I guess the main thing is just that, we're mistaken for a guild quite a bit. And, you know, our concept is novel, right? It's like it's a new take on how people can get exposure to GameFi. Um, so I think the biggest challenge for us is just getting that message across properly and educating people on what we do, why we're helpful to the community. Like game developers like Illuvium love us because we're the most diamond-handed people that there are, right? We buy up all of these plots of land and we sit on them for mission pools, right? We don't flip them. We don't like create a lot of volatility in the market. And because a big part of our business model is reinvesting, our interest into the games that we have conviction in, we're very rarely a seller, but always a buyer, right? Like if Illuvium land is doing well for our mission pools, we're going to constantly be looking to buy more land. And so I think we're healthy for the GameFi industry as a whole because we provide a lot of stability and support for the games that are kind of leading the charge into that AAA quality, um, you know, uh, the AAA quality future that we have for GameFi. So, in terms of where to find us, Twitter and Discord is where we're most active. Maybe we can put the links down in the description here for it.
Yep,
But
I'll put those all
um,
down there.
and then my Twitter, I'm fairly active, and so we try to be super engaged with our community. Like our team is in Discord constantly trying to answer questions and help people learn more and see how they can get involved. So I would just encourage anyone that's interested to just tap into our socials, come in and say hey from the team, or say hey to the team, say you came from the JIF's channel, and just talk to us and get to know us. But yeah, we're super easy to talk to and just excited about building in the space. So yeah, really
All
appreciate.
right. Yeah. Before we go, I just remembered one thing. Don't you have a land sale giveaway?
Yeah, so we are currently giving away 2 plots of tier 1 land. So we'll have 2 winners. It's a Gleam style, contest. So if you're familiar with the one that Illuvium did or is doing, very similar process, right? It's very easy to just go in there. We're not asking you guys to do anything weird. It's just like follow the Twitter, retweet a post, join our Discord, and you get entries into the drawing for each thing that you do. So maybe you can drop a link to that as well in the description
Yep.
so that people can very easily just click on that and do the little check marks. But um, yeah, we'll do that drawing on the 13th, I believe it was. So about 4 days to go. And then, we'll continue to do additional giveaways in the future. We have some other treats coming down the pipeline. I'll give a little alpha leak for your viewers. We have an NFT collection coming that is going to be airdropped to our early supporters. So we're not planning on selling it. It's more like a way to give back to our community. And these NFTs are going to be utility items for our platform. So you can kind of think of it like passes that unlock certain features and certain benefits and bonuses. So that's a little alpha leak for you guys. But maybe if maybe we can do something fun, like if anyone comes and joins our Discord and in the Gen chat they say that they're from your YouTube, maybe we'll give them a special role so they'll get airdropped an NFT. So might be able to do something fun like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. Well, thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me. I learned a lot. I hope the viewers learned a lot as well.
Yeah.
I'll
Really
be
appreciate
seeing
you
you
having
around.
me on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your support, and yeah, we'll make sure to stay in touch. Maybe we can do a run through of the website or the mission pool DApp before launch, and kind of play around with that
Yeah.
together. Give you some arcade tokens to play around with. So we'll have some fun with it. But yeah, sounds good, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate the
We'll
support.
definitely get together again. All
Sounds
right.
great. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.